Good morning, everyone. I'm Konstantina Zerva and I work at the University of Edinburgh, the School of Mathematics. And my talk is about developing online workbooks for engineering and STEM mathematical education. So here is the outline of my talk. I'll start by introducing the Helm workbooks, which were the basis of this project. Then I'll explain the underlying pedagogy of the online workbooks and briefly introduce STACK. I'll describe how we transform the Helm workbooks into online STACK workbooks, and finally, how we use them in our teaching during the last 2 academic years. So the mathematical education of engineers and scientists is important, and it's quite common for the mathematics department to offer service teaching to the engineering departments. So the Helm workbooks are a series of flexible workbooks for engineers which cover the basic engineering, mathematics, and statistics teaching for first and second year students in a typical UK undergraduate engineering course, but probably not only UK course, because I think engineering education will be more or less the same around the globe. So the Helm workbooks were developed by the Helm Consortium, led by the Loughborough University. So the project funded by a grant from the Higher Education Funding Council for England, and it took 3 years to develop. Originally, Helm had online support, but all that remained in 2020 were the PDF files of the 50 workbooks. So I'll try to show you, hopefully now that I clicked on the link, you see what opened. I always feel confused with Zoom. So as you can see, they cover from basic algebra, functions, trigonometry, matrices, vectors, complex numbers, like in derivatives, integrals, and more advanced materials like eigenvalues and eigenvectors, Fourier transform series. Then later on, they cover basic probability and statistics. So more or less all the topics that engineers need. So okay, I went back on the talk. So what is the underlying pedagogy we had in mind when we started translating the Helm PDF files to online workbooks? As we said here in Edinburgh, we try to put the book inside the quiz. So all materials are inside the quiz, the written notes, the video clips, the online assessments. And we started this process back in 2018. So in the summer of 2018, a colleague of mine, George Kinner, and Richard Gradwick, they created the Fundamentals of Algebra and Calculus course, which is a fully online course. It is designed to help students who come from a wide range of backgrounds for study at the University of Edinburgh. The central idea behind the course is to put the book inside the quiz. So all the text, the videos, and the worked examples, the practice questions, they are not into, all of them are into a sequence of online quizzes. So the quizzes are the organizing structure to promote engagement. The development of Fundamentals of Algebra and Calculus was informed by previous educational research on mastery learning. Students need to score more than 80% to pass each week's assessment. So I also have a link that goes to our demo server, and you can see a week of FEC structure if you want to dig a bit deeper on that. So very briefly, and without going into technical details, I'll introduce STACK. STACK is an open source system for mathematics and sciences, and it's an optional plugin for the Moodle Queen and for EAMS system that used in Germany. It uses the computer algebra system Maxima, and students can type an answer at the form of algebraic expression. And of course, with STACK, we don't stay on multiple choice questions, but we can assess more advanced things. So STACK has a lot of key features. Teachers should be able to write their own questions with minimal coding skills. And what is very useful is that STACK separates validity from correctness. So when the students type an answer that is invalid, let's say they type sine x without having like brackets, they will receive a message that this is invalid, so they can change it and they won't mark down for technicality. So with stack, multi-part questions are possible, and it's rich in features. The questions can be randomized. We have different type of inputs like algebraic input, matrices, numerical input. It's possible to give partial credits. Plots can be dynamically generated and they can follow the randomization. And we provide full support for scientific units. So I just have the link for our demo server if you want to get engaged more in Stack. And of course, Stack was developed mainly by Chris Sanguin, who is professor at the University of Edinburgh. Tim Hunt and Matti Harula are between the main developers. So we have all the good tools for online assessment of mathematics, and we try to use these tools effectively. So on the summer of 2020, we tried to combine the FAC, the Fundamentals of Algebra and Calculus structure, and Helm, and create comprehensive workbooks for engineers and scientists, which are based on coherent and tested resources. And each individual PDF file, which is like a Helm section, is a manageable size, so it's worthwhile to create it as an online quiz. So how we did it? So the project, we hired interns primarily from the University of Edinburgh and Loughborough University. So they converted Helm source into Moodle. They implemented questions within Stack where possible. Sometimes they also created some multiple choice Moodle questions and other Moodle question types. So the Stack questions, we tried to have sensible randomization. We wanted every question to have fully written work solutions. And we deployed variables in every question. We created test cases and tried to have sensible question notes. And of course, they had to follow strict style guide and authoring guidelines so that all the quizzes and all the workbooks are coherent. Then when each of the interns translated one of the PDF into a whole online quiz, the work was reviewed mainly by me to deal with any Stack issues. And then the work was reviewed by the course organizer to focus mainly in issues in like how the educational resources were presented. And at the end, most of the quizzes were tested by undergraduate students, probably to find some small typos and do some small edits. Of course, this process was very challenging because we had 16 interns, 16 PhD students, all of them were new to Stack, and we hired them for a few months during summertime. So the speed of work varied significantly, and we see varied use of Stack. Probably some of you have already used Stack on your assessment, so you know that it has a bit of steep learning curve. So you need a few weeks to sort of feel more confident and start creating better Stack questions. So we had a lot of interns needed different times to feel confident. So there was no clear understanding what a fully worked solution is. So Helm provided the final answer for every question. And sometimes the interns just put the final answer as work solution, like this integral is equal to that, without having the steps in between. So meaningless question notes. So I'll explain in the next slide what I mean with that. So when a question has randomization, we need to write a question note, otherwise it's impossible to save the question. So this question note, we always tell people to put something meaningful there, not just the random variables, so that when you go back to the question, you understand what all this thing is about. So alt text. So for every image we had into Helm, first of all, we transformed it to SVG file, but for every image we had to fill in the alt text for accessibility reasons. So in some places that was insufficient at the beginning. Of course, workbooks completed out of sequence, so we didn't receive every workbook in order, like what we need for the few weeks in our teaching, it didn't come like as a first workbook, and we had to give repetitive feedback to different authors. So I think here I have a screenshot of what I mean meaningless question note. And really, if you write stuck questions, try to take care of your notes. Okay, you make a big favor to your future self and to your colleagues if you share questions. So here is a screenshot of like a few deployed variables in one question, and it's just a list of numbers. Okay, like I don't think by just seeing this note, you really get anything about the question or what is the solution here. So try to write something meaningful. I don't know, having the function. If these are answers, just say what they are. So here is like a wave function, the things students are asked to find: the amplitude, the frequency, the period. I mean, you can edit the question not even more. I didn't put any units here, okay? But at least it's clearer what the question asks. And if you end up with a number that is, I don't know, odd or weird, you can easily spot it. So after all of these challenges, progress happened. So here I have some screenshots of how Helm looks. So that's on the left is how Helm looks on the PDF, like some part of the theory and the key point, and how it looks on Stack. On the same time, the University of Bath and the MAS team, they translated Helm to HTML, mainly for accessibility reasons. They don't have, like, you can't work on the questions online for that, but you have all the materials in a more accessible format. So here is the task, how it looks on Helm on the left and how it looks on Stack on the right. So people can type in their answers and they can check if the answer is correct or not and receive some feedback. So that was the first summer. And during the last year, some updates happened, of course. So during the first summer, we didn't have any interactive graphs at all. So if a question had any kind of graphs, we just have the image Helm provided, and we didn't have any randomization because it was harder to create interactivity. So the last summer, we hired 2 interns and they did an amazing job. So they created JSX graphs in some of the Helm questions. So now we have some interactive elements. We tried to provide better feedback. So a lot of Helm questions, they just had, you know, one potential response tree. So correct answer, correct, marked as correct, the wrong answer marked as incorrect. And on the first year, we didn't have more sophisticated potential response trees to give better feedback. So we went and updated a lot of the questions. So now people receive better feedback. And okay, that's a future thing. Chris gave a talk, I think it was last week, of being able to give free text answers. So students write an answer, free text, and receive some feedback and don't get penalized, I don't know, for like a type or things like that. So I avoided these questions as a devil, even if string was an option, and most of the Helm questions were like a drop down list for students to choose. So this feature is not available yet. It will be available in the next Stack release over the summer. But this is a question I created on our development server, which is different from the demo server. And that's the Helm question, the existing Helm question on the left with like the drop down list. Like on the right, I just replace the drop down with a string option so people can type in. And that's the screenshot of the Maxima code with the 2 list, what you allow, what you deny. And I think I allow the local minimum, but like minimum, just minimum, maybe it's the wrong answer, I don't know. People can have opinions on that. So how we use the workbooks in our teaching. So the School of Mathematics We have 2 courses designed for engineers and chemists, and they have around 500 students per year. The course organizer is Dr. David Quinn. So in the past, we had different stack quizzes, assessing somehow every week's lecture. So the last 2 years, we used one Helm workbook per week, which is like 3 to 4 sections. So one lecture is more or less one Helm workbook. So that served as the first introduction to each topic. Students could go there and work through the workbooks and introduce themselves with each week topics. So we have a separate stack quiz as like a small assessed quiz for marks. So the Helm workbooks didn't have any marks attached to them, to the students. They worked on them, they took the score, but the mark didn't count for any formal mark. And of course, we had some video lectures to expand on the theory, and they had access on the book as well. So on the academic year 2020-21, everything was online. So also the workshops and everything. This academic year, we kept the Helm and online lectures. We had some in-person workshops for the students, but the structure was more or less the same on both academic years. So students gave a very positive feedback on Helm workbooks, especially when they were asked what they find more useful in the course. I think all of them valued the stack workbooks as the most useful resource, and especially the check button, that they could go there and write their answer and then click the check button and receive feedback if the answer was correct or not, or a bit more specific feedback of what they probably did wrong. So of course, students, that was for first year mathematics. So our first year students who then went to the second year engineering mathematics, they actually asked for more Helm workbooks. They had access on the Helm link to work on the Helm materials if they wanted to, but they specifically asked for stack workbooks. So there is some discussion happening to create the relevant materials for the second year teaching, which is not offered from the School of Mathematics, or it's offered from the School of Engineering. So the future plans is to review the missing materials and try to complete the set. So we created mainly the materials we need for our teaching, and we haven't finished like translating the whole Helm into online workbooks. So we want to release the materials. So this always gets postponed. I think at the beginning it was to have some version control on Helm, but this probably won't happen. But we can release the materials soon, and then we have the discussions of using the Helm for second year engineering. So what we have, as I said, what we need. So Helm, there are 47 students' workbooks, which in total are 190 sections. More or less 2/3 of the materials have been translated into stack. We're missing 80 sections for now. And during this summer, I'm working in a few more workbooks. So by the end of the summer, I will have 10 more sections ready. Of course, these sections won't be tested, okay, just created, because the materials we used in our teaching, they've been through 2 years of used with students, and they're heavily tested. So hopefully they're more or less error-free, but the materials that are just created, not tested, they may need some testing at some point. So to create quality online learning materials, it requires a team effort. First of all, we need to have a robust online platform like Stack and the Moodle virtual learning environment. We need well-designed materials like the Helm workbooks, a tested delivery format as is the structure of FSC, and we need to have an agreed style guide so that we have high delivery standard. And of course, it requires a lot of people to do the job. And yes, I think I need to give a lot of thanks to the interns we had over the last 2 academic years, and they helped a lot to create this project. Okay, thank you for attending.
Thank you, Konstantina. And I think
Should I stop sharing?
Yeah, perhaps. Thank you, and I think we can appreciate Konstantina by the reactions on Zoom. I think we can take some questions and reactions before we move to the next talk. I'm not seeing anything on the Moodle link yet. Yeah. Yes, but do we have a comment or yes, Colin had a comment, I think, on the chat. I think
Yeah, about the question notes.
Want to voice it, Colin?
Yes, you were just talking about question notes. What I normally do is just pick up some text from the actual question text, enough, of course, to make that question unique as opposed to any of the other variants of that question. And well, I'm not saying it's the best thing to do, but it seems to work as far as I can see.
So you do something that is not just a list of variables. And I think probably it was my fault because I didn't really explain what it means meaningful. You know, you have a bunch of interns, you try to give a very quick introduction on Stack and you say, write something meaningful, but it wasn't very clearly communicated.
Right, yes. I mean, as I say, I just copy the core sentence or two from the question itself.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. So let me check again if you have some questions. Yes. So we actually, yes. So we have a question actually from Gareth on the Moodle side, and he's asking, maybe you missed this, but he's asking whether the Helm Stack resource is available as an open resource.
So they haven't released.
Colleagues. Is it available? Or is
they haven't released yet
sorry.
As an open education resource. This is the plan to happen. But of course, if people want to use them, they can have access on them. Like everything lives in our demo site. And a lot of people, some colleagues, I think from Norway, they already started translating Helm and use them for their teaching. So of course, if people want to use them, they can give them access to the demo site and look what they're there and ask for what they need. So the plan is to get released soon, but hasn't decided the exact date yet. And I think because Stack will have an update and Moodle will have an update on Moodle 4, probably it's better to wait and make the release after all these updates and in case there are some issues.
Thank you very much. Yes, we have a hand from Christian. Please go ahead.
I just wanted to say that the original workbooks are now released under Creative Commons. I've put the link in the chat and I'll do that on the Moodle site as well.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So, yeah. Thank you for that. I think we can continue the conversation